There's a beautiful tragedy in the soul of an empath. You see, the world praises those who feel deeply, those who carry others' pain, who listen, heal, and love without limit. But there's a truth no one dares to tell you. When you absorb too much darkness from others, you start to forget which pain is yours. You become a mirror for everyone else, yet invisible to yourself. And that is where the danger lies. This message isn't about turning off your heart. It's about protecting it. Because if you don't understand the shadow side of empathy, your gift can become your downfall. Let's uncover the 5 truths every empath must face before the light inside them burns out. Empaths often carry a quiet hero complex, an invisible crown made of compassion. They feel called to fix, heal, or rescue the broken, the wounded, and the lost. It starts innocently. You meet someone who's struggling, and something inside you says, maybe I can help. You offer understanding, you listen when no one else does, and soon you become their emotional shelter. But slowly that shelter turns into a prison, not for them but for you. You begin to live in their storms, patching up their pain while your own roof starts to cave in. This is the shadow of the savior, the hidden trap that empathy sets when it goes unchecked. It's that deep-rooted belief that your love can transform another person, that if you just hold on a little longer, they'll finally see the light. But the truth is, sometimes people don't want to heal. Some have built their identity around being broken. Their chaos gives them attention, excuses, and control. And when you try to save them, they'll pull you into their darkness because it feels safer to them than the unfamiliar peace you're offering. Empaths confuse connection with responsibility. You feel their pain so vividly that you start believing it's your job to erase it. When they cry, you feel it in your bones. When they suffer, your body reacts as if it's your own wound. Neurologically, that's not far from the truth. Studies on mirror neurons show that our brains literally mimic the emotions of those around us. So yes, what you're feeling is real. But what's also real is that not every pain you feel belongs to you. Imagine you're standing in a burning house that isn't yours. The flames aren't consuming your walls, but you still feel the heat. And instead of stepping outside, you stay, trying to rebuild it with your bare hands while the owner watches, unwilling to grab a single bucket of water. That's the savior's shadow at work. You mistake endurance for love and sacrifice for purpose. You tell yourself, if I just love harder, maybe this time they'll change. But love, when it's one-sided, becomes currency for manipulation. People start to realize that no matter how much they take, you'll keep giving. And once they sense that, they no longer see your empathy as a gift. They see it as permission. The savior complex feeds on guilt. You fear walking away because it feels cruel. You fear saying no because it feels selfish. Somewhere along the way, you learn that good people stay, no matter how much it hurts. You were probably taught that love means loyalty, even when that loyalty costs your peace. But that's not love. That's emotional conditioning. Real love liberates. It doesn't demand that you bleed to prove it's real. There's another layer to this. Many empaths grew up in environments where they had to become caretakers early on, emotionally or physically. Maybe it was a parent who leaned on them for support, or a friend group that relied on their sensitivity. They learned that being needed equals being valued. And so, in adulthood, they unconsciously seek out people who need saving because it recreates that familiar dynamic, the one where they feel important, seen, useful. The tragedy is that this pattern keeps them locked in cycles of emotional exhaustion, mistaking pain for connection. The shadow of the savior doesn't just drain your energy, it distorts your identity. You start defining yourself by how much you can give, rather than who you truly are. You forget your own needs, your own goals, your own dreams, because someone else's suffering takes priority. And when that person doesn't change, you blame yourself. You think you didn't love enough, didn't say the right thing, didn't try hard enough. But in truth, no amount of love can heal someone who benefits from staying broken. One of the hardest lessons for an empath to learn is this: you cannot rescue anyone from their own shadow. Healing is a choice, and it's one that no one can make on another's behalf. You can guide, inspire, and support, but you cannot carry someone across a bridge they refuse to walk. There's a story of a man who saw a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. Feeling sorry for it, he gently tore the cocoon open to help. The butterfly emerged easily, but its wings were weak, unable to fly. The struggle it was meant to endure was necessary to strengthen its wings. The man's kindness had stolen its ability to soar. That's what happens when you try to rescue someone from their process. You may mean well, but sometimes in trying to save them, you strip them of the very strength they need to stand. Empathy becomes powerful only when paired with boundaries. True compassion doesn't mean carrying someone's pain. It means believing in their ability to face it. The Savior wants to remove all suffering. The wise empath understands that some suffering is sacred. It teaches, humbles, and transforms. When you intervene too much, you interfere with destiny's design. So the next time you feel compelled to save someone, pause. Ask yourself, am I helping them grow, or am I helping them avoid their growth? Am I empowering them, or enabling them? Because love that enables is not love. It's fear disguised as kindness, fear of being irrelevant, fear of losing purpose, fear of being alone. The shadow of the Savior whispers, you're only worthy when you're saving someone. But your true worth lies in your being, not your rescuing. The moment you understand that, your empathy stops being a cage and becomes a mirror, reflecting not the pain of others, but the strength within yourself. You can still be kind, still be giving, still be light. But now, you'll do it without losing yourself in someone else's darkness. Energy vampires don't walk around with warning labels. They don't hiss in daylight or hide in dark corners. They smile, they charm. They listen just enough to pull you in. They come wrapped in human faces. Friends, partners, coworkers, even family. And they feed not on your blood, but on your attention, your time, and your emotional energy. Their hunger is subtle at first. They might lean on you when they're struggling, and you, being empathetic, open your heart without hesitation. But over time, you notice something strange every time you interact with them. You walk away exhausted, heavy, or uncertain about yourself. They, on the other hand, leave lighter, brighter, even energized. That imbalance is the quiet signature of an energy vampire. Empaths are prime targets because they radiate emotional warmth. They listen deeply, they care genuinely, and they rarely turn people away. But this kindness becomes a beacon for those who thrive on constant validation, drama, or control. An energy vampire doesn't necessarily set out to harm you. Many are unconscious of what they're doing. They're simply trying to fill an internal void they've never learned to manage. They draw from others what they can't generate within themselves. And once they discover that your empathy is a never-ending well, they'll keep returning to drink from it. Their tactics are often emotional, not overt. Some drain you through constant negativity. Every conversation becomes a complaint, a crisis, or a confession. You become their therapist, their rescuer, their emotional dumping ground. They start most conversations with phrases like, "You won't believe what happened," or "I just can't deal with this anymore." And before you know it, you're knee-deep in their chaos. No matter how much advice or comfort you offer, it's never enough. Their problems persist because they don't want solutions. They want attention. Your empathy becomes their energy source, and your exhaustion becomes their relief. Others drain in more manipulative ways. They might subtly guilt you for setting boundaries. "I thought you cared about me," or "You've changed, you're not the same anymore." This emotional blackmail keeps you trapped in cycles of giving. They thrive when you feel guilty for choosing yourself. They plant doubt in your mind so that you start questioning whether protecting your peace makes you a bad person. It's a clever psychological inversion. They make you feel wrong for doing what's right for your own well-being. Some energy vampires come disguised as perpetual victims. They wear their wounds like armor, and their pain becomes a performance. They've built their identity around suffering, so any attempt to help them heal threatens their sense of self. They'll resist your advice, ignore your encouragement, and continue replaying their misery like a broken record. What they crave is sympathy, not growth. And for the empath, it's easy to mistake this cycle for compassion. They just need someone who understands. But the truth is, their pain is their comfort zone, and your empathy is the spotlight that keeps the show running. There's also the charismatic type, the ones who dazzle you with their charm, their confidence, their magnetic energy. They make you feel special, chosen, seen. But behind their glow lies a hidden motive. They want control, admiration, or validation. They know how to read your emotional temperature and adjust their behavior to get what they need. They flatter you when they want something, and withdraw affection when you start pulling away. You'll find yourself chasing their approval, without realizing you've been conditioned to supply their emotional fuel. These are the most dangerous ones, because they make dependency feel like love. Science has begun to confirm what many empaths feel intuitively. Emotional energy is real, and it's contagious. Psychologists call it emotional contagion, the phenomenon where one person's mood or stress level directly affects another's. Mirror neurons in our brains are designed to mimic the emotions of those we interact with. This means that spending time around negative or draining individuals literally alters your physiological state. Your cortisol levels rise, your nervous system enters stress mode, and your energy depletes. It's not just in your head, your body keeps the score. That's why you might feel tired after certain conversations, even if you haven't done anything physically demanding. It's your nervous system responding to the emotional weight of the interaction. Over time, repeated exposure to these energy drains can lead to compassion fatigue, a condition often seen in caregivers and therapists, where constant emotional output leads to numbness, irritability, and burnout. For an empath, this burnout feels like losing your light. The world becomes heavier, your intuition dulls, and your spirit feels scattered. Recognizing an energy vampire isn't about labeling people as villains, it's about awareness. Some of them are deeply wounded souls who don't know how to self-regulate. Others are manipulative personalities who exploit empathy for control. In both cases, the result is the same: your emotional resources are depleted, and your sense of peace is compromised. The antidote isn't more giving, it's boundaries. Learning to identify when your compassion is being weaponized is the first step toward protecting your energy. One simple but powerful practice is to pay attention to how you feel after you spend time with someone. If you consistently feel drained, anxious, or guilty afterward, that's data. Your body doesn't lie. Your energy field records every exchange, every emotional transaction. If someone's presence always costs you peace, then it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Empathy should be a two-way current, not a one-sided leak. It's not your duty to fix everyone's wounds or absorb their pain. The highest form of love isn't rescuing, it's allowing others to face their own reflections. When you withdraw your energy from those who misuse it, you're not being cruel. You're teaching them self-responsibility, and you're reminding yourself that your light is sacred. The world doesn't need you drained and dim, it needs you whole, radiant, and wise enough to see through the beautiful faces of those who feed on what they refuse to grow within themselves. Compassion is sacred. It's the heartbeat of humanity, the force that bridges one soul to another. But when compassion has no boundaries, it turns into something else entirely: exhaustion, resentment, and self-erasure. The empath knows this feeling well, that deep pull to help, to fix, to be there no matter the cost. It starts as kindness, but over time it begins to hurt. You start to notice that every time you pour yourself into others, there's a little less of you left. Your patience thins, your joy fades, and your body begins to carry the fatigue of every soul you've tried to save. That's when compassion becomes self-destruction, when your open heart turns into an open wound. We grow up hearing that love is about giving, that good people put others first, that kindness means saying, wise. But no one teaches us what happens when we give beyond our limits. No one warns us that compassion without boundaries attracts those who see generosity as weakness. You begin to meet people who take your yes as a permanent invitation. They don't notice your tired eyes or your trembling voice when you say, "It's fine." They assume your strength is endless because you never say no. And soon, you become the emotional foundation for everyone else's comfort while your own needs collapse beneath the weight. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out, they are filters that protect your energy. Without them, empathy becomes martyrdom. You start believing that love means sacrifice, that if someone is hurting, it's your duty to absorb their pain. You cancel your plans to comfort others, you ignore your intuition to maintain peace, and you silence your needs because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You become the emotional caretaker of the world, yet no one seems to notice when you're the one bleeding. The truth is, unguarded compassion can destroy the very soul it comes from. It's like watering a garden with all the water you have, leaving none for yourself. Eventually, even the flowers you've nurtured begin to wilt because the well has run dry. People who constantly give without replenishing themselves are not saints. They're starving healers, and starving healers eventually lose the strength to heal anyone, including themselves. There's a subtle kind of guilt that lives inside the empath. It whispers, "If I say no, they'll think I don't care." But boundaries don't mean you love less, they mean you love wisely. Compassion with boundaries says, "I see your pain, but I will not drown in it with you." It understands that you can hold space for others while still protecting your peace. True empathy does not require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Think of your compassion like an electrical current. It needs insulation to carry power effectively. Without it, the energy burns out, shorts, and fails to flow. Boundaries are that insulation. They ensure that your compassion remains sustainable, not self-destructive. They remind you that you are not responsible for everyone's healing. You are responsible only for your integrity, for showing up with love, but not losing yourself in someone else's suffering. In every relationship, romantic, familial, or professional, there must be a balance between giving and receiving. When that balance breaks, resentment grows in the quiet corners of your heart. You start feeling unappreciated, invisible, used. But the hard truth is this: people treat your compassion according to the standards you set. If you keep giving without pause, they'll assume you don't need rest. If you never say no, they'll believe you never have limits. Boundaries teach others how to respect you. And more importantly, they teach you how to respect yourself. Compassion without boundaries often disguises itself as unconditional love, but it's really fear in disguise. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being seen as selfish. Many empaths equate saying no with cruelty, but in truth, boundaries are acts of love. They say, I value this relationship enough to make it honest. Because a connection built on silent resentment isn't kindness, it's emotional codependency. There's a story of a woman who tried to help everyone in her village. She gave food to the hungry, listened to the sorrowful, and worked day and night to ease their suffering. Over time, her health began to fail. When she could no longer walk, people came to her door asking for help, and she still tried to offer advice, still tried to give. One day a young girl asked her, "Why do you keep helping when it's hurting you?" The woman smiled weakly and said, "Because I thought that's what good people do." The girl replied, "Maybe good people are the ones who teach others to stand on their own feet." That's the heart of healthy compassion. Not carrying everyone, but empowering them to carry themselves. The most transformative love is not the one that saves others, it's the one that helps them rise. But to do that, you must first rise yourself. And you can't rise if you're buried beneath the weight of everyone else's emotions. Self-compassion is not selfishness. It's the anchor that keeps empathy from drifting into chaos. It's the voice that says, I matter too. When you set boundaries, you are not closing your heart. You are protecting the capacity to keep it open. You are saying, I will love you, but not at the expense of my peace. That's what real compassion looks like. Strong, wise, and balanced. It's love that knows where to draw the line, not because it lacks empathy, but because it understands that even light must rest to keep shining. Empaths often see themselves as the light, the healers, the comforters, the ones who bring calm to chaos. They pride themselves on being gentle, forgiving, and endlessly understanding. But what many don't realize is that the same sensitivity that allows them to feel so much beauty also exposes them to the darker corners of their own psyche. Beneath that light lies something equally powerful, the shadow. It's the part of you that feels jealousy when someone else succeeds, that feels anger when you're taken for granted, that secretly resents always being the strong one. Most empaths suppress this side, believing that to feel these emotions makes them less kind, less spiritual, less good. But denying the shadow doesn't erase it. It only gives it control in silence. Every human being carries a shadow, that hidden self made up of repressed emotions, instincts, and truths we don't want to admit. For empaths, this shadow often forms from years of people-pleasing, emotional suppression, and chronic self-sacrifice. You've been told all your life to be understanding, to stay calm, to never make others uncomfortable. So you bury your anger, your sadness, your exhaustion, until it begins to leak through cracks in ways you can't control. You start snapping over small things, withdrawing when you should speak up, or feeling drained by people you used to love being around. This isn't you becoming cold. It's your shadow demanding to be heard. Your shadow feels everything you've refused to acknowledge. It remembers the times you were ignored, the moments you gave and received nothing back, the times you said, I'm fine, when you were breaking inside. It holds onto that emotional residue, quietly collecting all the pieces of your truth that you pushed away in the name of being nice. Eventually, it builds a quiet resentment toward the world, and sometimes toward yourself. You might notice yourself attracting the same types of people or situations repeatedly, those who drain, disrespect, or abandon you. It's not bad luck. It's your unconscious trying to show you the lesson you keep avoiding. You cannot stay in the light by denying your darkness. The shadow isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It's the part of you that carries unmet needs and unexpressed boundaries. It's the voice that says, I'm tired of pretending. When you ignore it, it finds ways to get your attention, often through emotional burnout or repeated cycles of pain. But when you face it, something incredible happens. You begin to reclaim your power. Because every emotion you've buried has energy, and when you integrate it, that energy becomes strength instead of suffering. Think about it this way: empathy without boundaries creates imbalance, but empathy combined with shadow work creates wisdom. When you finally allow yourself to feel anger, you begin to understand where your limits truly are. When you face your envy, you uncover your own unfulfilled desires. When you admit your loneliness, you realize how long you've been neglecting your own heart. The shadow doesn't make you less of an empath. It makes you a complete one. Because true compassion isn't born from constant positivity. It's born from understanding pain, including your own. There's a quiet kind of freedom in saying, yes, I get angry. Yes, I feel jealousy. Yes, I get tired of giving. Those admissions don't make you unkind. They make you honest. Pretending to be pure light only leads to disconnection, because no one can truly relate to someone who hides their humanity behind constant grace. Real connection happens when you embrace your contradictions, when you can say, I love deeply, but I also need space. I forgive easily, but I won't tolerate disrespect. That balance, that union of light and shadow, is what makes your empathy sustainable. You see, the shadow also protects you. It's the part that says, enough. It's the surge in your chest when someone crosses your line. It's the cold silence that follows betrayal. Many empaths mistake these signals as guilt. They feel bad for feeling bad, but those emotions are actually guidance systems. They're not punishments, they're boundaries in emotional form. The more you listen to them, the less you attract people who take advantage of your softness. Ignoring your shadow is like ignoring half of your reflection. You can't stand fully in your truth while pretending that half of you doesn't exist. Integration doesn't mean becoming dark. It means letting your darkness inform your strength. It means acknowledging your flaws, forgiving them, and transforming them into wisdom. It's realizing that your ability to love is deeper when you understand your capacity for pain. Consider the moon. It doesn't only shine because of its light side. Its beauty is defined by contrast, by the shadows that give its glow shape and depth. The same is true for your soul. Your empathy shines brighter when it's anchored in self-awareness. When you know your own shadow, no one else can use it against you. You stop being manipulated by guilt or fear because you've already made peace with the parts of yourself that others might try to shame. Facing your shadow isn't comfortable. It requires looking into the parts of yourself that don't fit the image you want to project. It means admitting that sometimes your motives aren't purely altruistic, that sometimes you help others because you're afraid to face your own emptiness. But that honesty is what leads to emotional maturity. The goal isn't perfection, it's wholeness. And wholeness means owning every part of your humanity. Your shadow feels, and it deserves to. It feels rage when you're taken for granted, grief when you're forgotten, and power when you finally say, no. Let it, because once you allow your shadow to have a voice, it no longer controls you from the dark. Instead, it walks beside your light, giving it depth, wisdom, and resilience. That's when empathy transforms from fragility into strength. When you stop fearing your darkness and start using it to protect your light. There comes a moment in every empath's journey when the weight of the world becomes too heavy to carry. After years of giving, healing, and absorbing, something inside begins to whisper, quietly at first, then louder, what about me? That voice isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's the voice of your spirit reminding you that your light was never meant to be shared with everyone. You were never meant to illuminate every dark room or heal every broken soul. You were meant to shine where your light is respected, not consumed. Empaths often confuse their purpose with obligation. They believe that because they can feel someone's pain, they should fix it. But that belief becomes the root of their exhaustion. Your energy, your warmth, your attention, these are not free resources. They are sacred offerings that should be exchanged with care, not demanded without thought. Yet too often the empath becomes the eternal giver, surrounded by people who take their light and offer nothing in return. It doesn't happen all at once, it's gradual. You start giving a little more time, a little more love, a little more forgiveness, until one day you look in the mirror and realize that the spark in your eyes has dimmed. Reclaiming your light means remembering that your empathy is not a public service. It's a divine gift, and not everyone has earned access to it. Just because someone needs help doesn't mean you're the one meant to provide it. Not every lost soul is your responsibility to guide home. When you understand this, you start seeing your light not as a currency to buy love or approval, but as a reflection of your worth. You begin to reserve your compassion for those who value it, not those who drain it. You've probably met people who come alive only when you're shining. They stand near you, soaking in your warmth, your optimism, your peace. but the moment you dim, they disappear. These are the people who love the way you make them feel, not who you truly are. They don't come to share their light. They come to borrow yours. And the longer you allow that pattern to continue, the more disconnected you become from your own source. It's like keeping a lamp plugged into someone else's power outlet. The moment they switch off, your world goes dark. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your light doesn't depend on others. It comes from within, from your truth, your boundaries, your authenticity. You don't have to chase love by giving endlessly. You don't have to prove your goodness by staying in relationships that exhaust you. You don't have to keep showing up for people who never show up for you. The sun doesn't apologize for setting, and neither should you for resting. There's a quiet power in withdrawal, not the kind that's bitter or cold, but the kind that says, I choose peace over proving my worth. When you pull your energy back from people and places that misuse it, you begin to regenerate. Your intuition sharpens. Your joy returns. You start noticing how your body feels lighter when you're not absorbing everyone else's emotions. You remember what silence sounds like. You rediscover what peace feels like. That's your light reawakening. Not the kind that shines for everyone, but the kind that radiates from within, unbothered and self-sustaining. Protecting your light doesn't mean becoming hard or unkind. It means discerning where your warmth actually creates growth and where it only fuels dependency. There's a difference between helping someone stand and holding them up forever. The first empowers, the second depletes. When you keep giving your energy to people who refuse to take responsibility for their own lives, you're not helping them evolve. You're keeping them comfortable in their stagnation. Sometimes love looks like distance. Sometimes the most compassionate act is to step back and let someone meet their own reflection. Think of a candle trying to light 1,000 others. If it burns itself out in the process, the darkness wins. But if it guards its flame and shares it wisely, it continues to shine, steady, strong, eternal. Your empathy works the same way. The more you learn to guard your energy, the more powerful your light becomes. People who once used your kindness as a crutch will fall away, and that might hurt. But soon, new people will arrive, those who bring balance instead of burden, gratitude instead of guilt, reciprocity instead of reliance. Reclaiming your light is an act of self-love, but it's also an act of spiritual maturity. It's saying, I no longer need to prove my goodness by overextending myself. It's realizing that you can care deeply without carrying everyone. It's the moment you stop defining yourself by how much you give and start honoring yourself for simply being. You begin to understand that boundaries don't make your light smaller. They make it clearer, stronger, and more focused. When you reclaim your light, the world around you begins to shift. You stop attracting people who need saving and start meeting those who inspire you to grow. You stop feeling guilty for resting. You stop apologizing for being selective with your time. And most importantly, you start feeling alive again, not because others are feeding on your energy, but because you finally return to your own source. Your light was never meant to be shared with everyone. It was meant to guide you, to attract the right souls, to illuminate your purpose, and to remind you that your worth has never depended on who you save, but on who you become when you choose yourself. The world doesn't need you burned out and broken. It needs you whole, radiant, and wise enough to know that not everyone deserves access to your fire. Some were only meant to see it from afar, not stand so close that they consume it. So in the end, the lesson is not about becoming less empathetic. It's about becoming wiser with your empathy. The world will always need healers, listeners, and light bringers, but it does not need you to destroy yourself in the process. True compassion begins when you recognize that your energy is sacred. You are not here to fix everyone. You are here to live fully, love consciously, and give intentionally. When you understand the shadow of your own nature, when you see the human faces behind energy vampires, when you learn that compassion without boundaries is self-destruction, and when you remember that even your shadow feels, you stop being consumed by others' pain and start transforming it into strength. Reclaim your light, not out of bitterness, but out of love for the life that's still waiting inside you. Your light was never meant to be scattered across those who do not value it. It was meant to illuminate your path, to awaken your power, and to guide you toward those who see you not as a source but as a soul. So walk forward not as a savior, but as a sovereign being, grounded, self-aware, and radiant. Let your empathy be a force of discernment, not destruction. And when you shine again, and you will, let it be from a place of balance, peace, and truth. Because the brightest light isn't the one that burns for everyone. It's the one that burns without losing itself.